Welcome to the All of You podcast, where we believe healthy relationships are created by growing individually and pursuing a healthy relationship with yourself.
So let's take a deep breath. Settle in and grow together.
Okay, so when we first started our personal growth journey, like really getting deep into relationship dynamics and understanding all of the stuff that we talk about on this podcast now, one of the most difficult words for me was the word abuse. And we did a course that really highlighted abusive behaviors and understanding abuse and calling it out in your own relationship. And man, was it triggering for me. Like whenever they would talk about it, whenever the word was used, it's just such a hard word to accept, I feel like.
It's funny that you say that. We've never had that conversation about how hard that word is for you, because I really struggled with it when I first learned what abuse actually is. I can vividly remember, it was years ago now, but it was in the very first course that I ever took when I was beginning to work on myself. And I was sitting in a room, I think there was like 13 other women, and they gave us this handout. And on the handout, it had what abuse is, every single form of abuse. And we were going down it and like reading the handout out loud. And by the time we got done, I remember the woman sitting next to me, who's actually a dear friend now, just going, but this is all of us. I don't know a single relationship that doesn't have abuse in it. If you're saying that name calling is abuse, I mean, who hasn't called their partner a name before? And just going through the ones that like seemingly weren't that bad, but fall under the abuse category, I was stunned and had to have that awakening of, oh, I've been abusive. And I think why that word is so gut-wrenching is we often look at abuse as like physical abuse, like he hit her, or like sexual abuse, these things that are like really major. And I don't want to say that there's major abuse and minor abuse, but to a degree, like I wouldn't put name calling in the same category as someone punching their partner, right? So like there is a spectrum to it, but realizing that I'm in the spectrum, like I've been abusive to you, was really
just painful, right?
Oh. Even now when I think about it, it doesn't sit well in my stomach, because I would really love to stay on my high horse and look down at everyone else and be like, ha, you abusers, here I am, holier than all of thou. Like I would love that, but that just wasn't the case.
Yeah, and that's like one of the most eye-opening things is learning how you negatively impact your partner. Like when I think of abuse, I basically think of negatively impact. You're bringing them down. But I don't think in our society we've really understood, like the majority of people probably don't understand what emotional abuse is. They might think name calling, they might think really dramatic, forms of manipulation, things like that. But in our relationship, one thing that's changed us from the inside out is having a moment where we decided, and we are not going to accept, either one of us, any form of emotional abuse.
Any form of any abuse.
Yeah.
And we're pretty cutthroat about it. And like, let's be real, we still fight time to time.
Mm-hmm.
But if there is name calling, the other person is boundaried immediately.
100%.
You don't just get a name call in our house.
No.
Or I guess not in our house. We could be in the car too. In our relationship, you don't get a name call.
Yeah, and that seems really dramatic to maybe a lot of people. And I think that depending on how you're raised, depending on where you come from, you just get used to a certain way you're treated, and you just have a different tolerance for abuse. And unless you're taught in a class like we were about different forms of abuse, different forms of relationship dynamics, what is manipulation really? Like, what is all the forms of manipulation? Is guilt tripping a form of abuse?
Yes.
Yeah, there's so many little forms of abuse that we don't really validate in our society, because you can't really do anything about it when somebody is abusive to you in that way. You only thing that you can really do is boundary them. I think we end up accepting a lot of abusive behaviors from our partners, from the workplace, from a lot of things, and then you have toxic environments. So to piggyback kind of on last week's episode, we were talking about love and the difference between love and lust, and romance, and finding a deeper love and connection between you and your partner. And this week we were thinking about, we wanted to do a part 2 of the love episode, but really we couldn't do that without talking about the darker side of love that a lot of people fall trapped into. And so, not this week is kind of heavy, but we'll try to lighten it up as much as we can. But I think it's important to talk about what we became aware of in our relationship and how we started to change from the inside out when we no longer were accepting of any form of abuse. So we should probably talk about, what is abuse?
Okay, so I'm not going to read every single one. The list is really long, but just to rattle off some, under the category of emotional and psychological abuse, that can look like gaslighting, constant criticism or belittling, silent treatment. Ooh, silent treatment. That's a sneaky abusive tactic for sure. Withholding affection, threatening self-harm to control you, or jealousy masked as love. Under verbal abuse, that can be yelling, name calling, or degrading comments, sarcasm and mockery meant to humiliate, and intimidation through tone or volume. I've had to work on sarcasm, that one. You're already laughing at me, I know. Physical abuse, which is any hitting, slapping, pushing, physical harm, but it can also be blocking exits, restraining or using weapons, damaging personal property. That can even be like hitting a wall. And then there's sexual abuse, where there's coercion or pressure into sexual acts, non-consensual acts, or using sex as a form of manipulation or punishment. And then there's financial abuse, controlling all the money, sabotaging your job or career, or giving someone allowance, or requiring they give receipts for everything they spend. And then this one is very 21st century, which is digital abuse, monitoring your messages, your location, your social media, demanding your passwords, requiring constant check-ins or phone access, basically giving you no privacy. And then there's spiritual abuse, which can be using religion or beliefs to shame, guilt, or control you, or claiming spiritual authority to dominate or silence you. So those are just some of the forms of abuse, but I think those are some of the bigger ones. And it's like a little, like gut wrenching. Yeah.
It's heavy. But I think it's important to paint that picture, because 99.9% of couples have some of that going on in their homes. And I think that until you admit, like for me, until I was willing to face the ways that I was abusive to you, or that word it still just like irks me to say it, but it's important to say it, because that's what it really is. It's negatively impacting the person you love. And we talk about love. We talk about how great love is. Love is awesome. You fall in love. You want to, uplift your partner. You want to be the person that they desire to be around most in this world and spend their life with and commit their life to. And yet we negatively impact our partners on accident, by our patterns, whatever it is. You just, if you have any type of abuse in your relationship, even if it's just name calling, it's going to slowly kill the connection. It's going to slowly diminish the respect. And the goal, I think, for any two people who love each other is to get to a point where you have no abusive tendencies in the relationship. If you do, it doesn't mean you have to break up immediately. It's really up to you if you want to end the relationship over abuse. I think if there is abuse and you want to end that relationship, by all means, you have the freedom to do so. But if you want to bear with your partner, like we've chosen to hang in there with each other when the other one isn't at their best, and we just call each other out. We've made a commitment to each other where we don't want abusive tendencies in the relationship. So if one of us spots it, if you're saying something to me that I don't like, that I find to be on that list, I'll call you out. I'll be like, hey, just mirroring this back to you, and you'll be like, thanks for telling me. And I'll set the boundary, and same vice versa. If I'm sarcastic or name calling in any way, or I don't want to tear you down. I want to uplift you in this life,
Absolutely. However, I don't know if that's the heart posture of everyone in relationships.
Ooh, say more.
It's not the heart posture because wounding gets in the way. So when someone, let's use for an example, someone who is jealous of their partner or insecure. If someone is jealous of their partner, then they might actually try to bring them down because they might think, oh, if my partner thinks they can do better than me, and this is very much on a subconscious level, but they'll think, oh, if my partner thinks they can do better than me when they go out to get drinks with their friends and someone else walks up to them, there's a chance they could leave me. So I'm going to belittle my partner so they don't think as highly of themselves and they'll want to stay with me, which is manipulation, right? So it's the wounding that we have within us that creates the abusive behaviors towards our partner. And that's where I feel like, while this episode is on like the dark side of love, I would actually say love and abuse cannot exist at the same time. Where there is abuse, there is not love.
Yeah, we confuse love with attachment. And when we're attached to someone, emotionally attached to someone, we do life with someone, we've married each other and blended our finances and built a family or whatever it is, none of that is love. Like that's all agreements, that's all negotiations, but none of it is loving and caring about the way the other person feels, supporting their well-being. So people get attached to each other and then they end up finding out their abusive tendencies and then they say, well, I still love you. Like, I love you, right? That's so, after an abusive episode, the number one thing someone will say, like it's in every movie that you see, well, I love you, right? It's like, well, you're just attached to me, but this is not love. And to be able to call that out, and that's something that we started calling out to each other, which is really, I'm just going to say it, fucking hard to admit. It is really hard to admit that we started calling out, we had abusive tendencies in our relationship. I don't want to paint us in the wrong light, but I want to be honest that we felt, and I mean, I guess it's all out there anyway, but we felt that our relationship was more hindering us than uplifting us at a certain time. And when we noticed that, and we were attached to each other, we did want the best for one another, we were willing to leave each other. Like I remember telling you, if I'm not uplifting to you, if I'm not supportive, if the pros don't outweigh the cons, you have to leave me, and vice versa. And you told me that too. And we were really honest about that. But, getting to a point where you're willing to be like, am I negatively impacting you? Is the sum of my actions more negatively impacting you than positive? And even if my positive is outweighing the negative, it doesn't justify the negative. Like I could uplift you, 90%, but if 10% of my actions are really harming you, like you have to leave me. This is not, I'm not fucking around on this episode. Like this is real stuff. And I think that we need to get more serious about talking about relationships in this way. They're not all good. We post these things on Instagram and we share our pictures together, and we post anniversary, or we say, you made it through a lot, but if behind closed doors there's staring like death stare eyes and condescending looks and tearing down, it's really causing a person to lose their self-worth, and an abused person over time is not going to flourish. They're not going to feel good about themselves internally when the person that they surround themselves most with is bringing them down. So we have to start having relationships be supportive, not abusive. And I've been in relationships that I thought were good, and I've found out later were not. You just don't. Ours included in the beginning. It felt great. It felt like love because that's what I thought. But you have to be willing to look in the mirror.
Right. And I've said this on the podcast many times, but I'll say it again because it's just rings so true. Hey friends, if you're struggling in your relationships, we want you to know we've been there and real change is possible.
So whether you're moving on from a breakup, working to strengthen your relationship, or just ready to show up differently in your life, we're here to help you out. Click the link in our bio and book a free 30-minute consultation with us, and we'll see if we're a good fit to work together.
And if you're enjoying this episode, we would love it if you would like, subscribe, or share this podcast, because better relationships start with better conversations. Now back to the show. We attract partners, find partners, marry partners that are wounded to the same level that we are. And so typically in a relationship, both partners are doing some of the abusive behaviors. Yes, it can be more one than the other, but when we are attracting someone who's wounded to the same level, and we find ourselves in a relationship where there are all of these abusive behaviors, that is when, and I know this was a wake-up call for me, we have to go, why did I attract this partner? And that's what points us towards the wounds inside of us. Because I don't think, so you can realize that you're in an abusive relationship and you can break up and you can get out, as you should, right? Depending on how bad it is. But unless you start healing those wounds inside of you, the next partner you attract will be wounded to the same degree as the last partner, because that's inherently how it works. And I say that because that's why I think it's so important to not just write it off and go, I was with this partner and they were awful and it was all their fault. That's why we go, why did I choose a partner who treated me like that? Because when we can shift to that mindset of why did I choose him, it opens the door. Or her. Yes. It opens the door to us inspecting our own wounds. Mm-hmm. It points back towards us, which is the only thing we can ever control. And so shifting back into ourselves allows us to investigate internally, why did I attract someone who treated me that way? Why did I accept that love? What about me did I contribute to that relationship? And there's a massive opportunity for growth within that.
Yeah, and I think that there's something I want to address too, which is the concept of what you said, where you choose two people choose each other who are equally wounded. If someone is really wounded and they're 20 something and they want partnership, then I think it's okay to choose a partner that's equally wounded, but you both have to have some ground rules. You know, we were both equally wounded. We both are still wounded and are still, I mean, this is just the journey, right? There's no perfect partner. I don't think there's a partnership that exists out there that probably doesn't have a sarcastic remark every once in a while or some kind of kerfluffle where somebody doesn't handle themselves perfectly. That perfection is not the goal. I think if you're finding yourself in abusive relationships, like, yes, when the breakup happens, it's like, why did I choose a partner like that? But also, let me find someone who maybe is also wounded, but we can set enough ground rules and boundaries to keep each other safe. That's what we did. You know, I didn't fix my tendencies, my insecurities overnight, and you didn't, you know, put a filter on your mouth necessarily very quickly either. I think we learned to boundary each other, to keep ourselves, to create a safety in our home that is like zero tolerance rule. And once we accepted that and we took that seriously, our life changed, our relationship changed.
100%. And I would say to single people, heal as much as you can before you get in a relationship. But I would say to people who are partnered, you don't have to throw the relationship out because of, I'm going to say minor abuse.
Yeah.
Because there are some circumstances you should absolutely leave
100%.
under any circumstance. But I wouldn't say toss it out because there's minor abuse. We did not need to toss our relationship out because of the abuse that we had, because I believe that relationships bring the biggest opportunity for healing. I mean, we're constantly triggering each other, which means constant opportunity to learn where we need to heal. And there is a way to heal safely in relationship. And that's really what boundaries do is, hey, I love you. And I know that, you know, what you would say to me, I love you. I don't love your mouth. I'm not willing to put up with it. So if you're going to talk like that or say things like that, I will immediately be leaving the room and I'll talk to you in 2 hours. Like, you would just put a firm boundary.
And also, like, to pause, sorry to interrupt you, but the reason I need to do that isn't even always because I can't handle what you said to me. Like, and this is important, I think, for a lot of guys. It's like, yeah, maybe you're handling it all and that's fine, but it's to protect myself from the resentment. It's to protect myself from, like, I can handle it in the moment, but if I allow you to speak to me like that over time, it's going to kill my love for you. It's going to kill my view of you. And it might even trigger me to a point where now my abusive tendencies are coming out in different ways. And then now we're just in a boxing match, you know?
Yeah. I would add to that too.
Not literally, but
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. That's a terrible joke for this episode, Dave.
Sorry.
What I would add to that also, when you first boundaried me or first started to, it felt terrible because I don't know if anyone else here has been boundaried before, but my initial feelings when I've been boundaried is like, what's wrong with me that someone has to put boundaries on me? I like to imagine I'm so perfect, no one would ever have to boundary me, because inherently it feels like I'm doing something wrong if I'm being boundaried, which a lot of the time I was, let's be real. But it felt icky at first, all of that to say. And then I actually started gaining more respect for you. I think that's a really important point to touch on, because someone who respects themselves enough to go, you can't treat me like that, or I'm walking away, you learn, oh, this person actually won't accept that behavior. I kind of respect that, because they shouldn't. You shouldn't accept behavior if I'm like, giving these sarcastic jokes instead of like talking through something with you. That isn't appropriate behavior. You shouldn't accept that. And so you not accepting it, eventually I went from feeling like, oh, something's bad in me, to, no, he's right. I shouldn't have done that. And I kind of respect him for calling me on it. And it took time to shift in that for me as I grew, and as I saw how moving towards health in the relationship was ultimately so much better for us. Not accepting abusive behaviors, just straight up, like we did, cold turkey. There's none accepted. If there is, you are heavily boundaried. As you said before, dramatically shifted the relationship. And as I saw the fruit of that, I began to respect it and want to live more that way.
Yeah, and there's a key point there as well, which is the boundary can't be a punishment.
Yes.
It cannot be a punishment. You will lose the respect. You are now a child retaliating. The boundary cannot be retaliation ever. Like it doesn't work.
I would actually say retaliation is a form of abuse.
100%. And if the boundary is the silent treatment, it's going to come out. It has leaky energy to it. It has a energy of retaliation, and that's just not. That's not how we do the relationship. If you want a boundary as a man, like when I boundaried you, the ways that I earned respect for you, the times where you knew it was right and felt right, like the relationship, it all felt healthy, was when I boundaried you, not out of anger, and just say, I have to keep myself safe here for us, but my heart is still open to you.
So that's exactly where I want to go in this conversation. So thank you for saying that, because there's this fine line in between drawing a boundary, which is removing yourself, and silent treatment.
Which is a form of abuse.
Silent treatment is a form of abuse. And so I think, and those two get really mixed up. So I think it's important to actually talk about that a little bit and what the difference is. And I would say the biggest one is what you just touched on, which is your heart posture. When you set a boundary and your heart posture is, I'm removing myself for the benefit of our relationship. Not because I don't love you, not because I'm trying to torture you, not because I'm trying to hurt you, but because I'm trying to protect me and us. So when you set a boundary with me, or I set a boundary with you, either way, when we do it, we say, hey, I'm going to be removing myself for X amount of time because I love you. I'll be back at this time, or when this behavior changes, or
in 2 hours, we'll try again.
Yes.
Or I'm going to go for a run and we'll see where you're at when I get back.
Yeah, I'll touch base when I get back. If it seems like we're in a place where we can hash this out, then I want to reconcile with you. So that is doing it in a way where it's not torturing the other person per se. It's in respect to the relationship and what's best for the dynamic and the conflict. Silent treatment is a little bit trickier to define, but it feels different because there's this underlying feeling of, I'm gonna make you hurt by being silent. You are going to feel my anger through my silent treatment. And that can work like, so when someone's giving you the silent treatment, it's like you ask them something and then they don't say anything at all. And you're like, oh, what? Like, oh, you're not speaking to me right now. Like, they don't tell you necessarily I'm giving you silent treatment. They just start giving you this coldness, and it's a manipulation tactic because they want you to feel their pain, their anger, their resentment without talking to you about it. So that heart posture is entirely different. That's where it's manipulative, is I'm emotionally manipulating you to feel bad instead of, hey, I want us to reconcile later, so here's what I'm going to do.
Yeah, the heart posture is the difference between the silent treatment and the boundary, because essentially the outward expression is the same thing. We're not talking, so what's the difference between silent treatment and me going for a run for 2 hours? The result is the same. I'm absent from you. I'm taking myself away, and we are not talking for a period of time, right? But the heart posture is the key to the whole thing, which is I care about the way you feel still. I still love you. And when I'm silent treatment is I'm walking out the door. I'm not telling you when I'm going to get back. I'm not giving you any type of information here. So the reason that I'm doing that is because I want you to feel pain. I want you to feel my pain, which kind of means I'm more important. I'm selfish at the moment. I don't care about you. I'm not leaving space to care about you. The love is gone in the moment, and I only care about the way I feel. My pain is so great, I don't care about anything else in this world. The only thing I care about is how much pain I'm in. And that isn't love. You've now become a complete narcissist in the moment and very much in tune with your own reality and your own perspective. Your mind has completely taken over, and you are wanting to twist the knife any way you can.
Yeah, and here's like even a little silly example of it, but kind of shows it, is if you've ever been texting with someone and it might be something that's like important or a little bit heated, and you say something and they don't like it, and so they just don't respond and they say nothing. That's not a boundary. They're not protecting themselves. They're going, I want to make you hurt because I didn't like what you said in the text message. So I'm going to like not say anything and leave you wondering and leave you feeling like, oh no, that person's mad at me.
Yeah, and it's hard over text because they could be in a meeting. They could have a good reason to not respond.
Yeah, I'm saying if they just don't
for days or
yes,
weeks
exactly.
or whatever. Yeah. And that's why the silent treatment is a form of abuse, because it really is it is retaliation. It is a heart posture of I want you to hurt. Mm-hmm. And if I want to cause you pain and I make an attempt to do that, that is abusive. Abuse is basically I want to cause someone pain. I want to poke a needle somewhere. It doesn't mean I want to, kill them or hurt them that bad, but it's like, how can I hurt them a little bit? And that's just not, why are we trying to hurt each other? I don't understand.
Well, and that's where it goes back to hurt people.
Yeah.
And when our wounds get activated, that's when our hurt gets activated and we try to hurt somever else.
And all this is subconscious, because
Exactly.
I think back, from the moment I was born, I never wanted to hurt anyone. I've never been like, I want to be a hurtful person in this world and cause other people harm, but I was in pain and I didn't know what to do with it. And I justified my actions, and I never was taught to handle my own pain and properly navigate conflict. And so there's no shame in this. I think it can invoke shame when we hear the list of things and we're embarrassed about our actions, but really there's your journey and there's your journey towards healthy relationships. finding out how to do it better. And that's what we're constantly, that's the whole point of this podcast, is trying to just grow and impact each other less negatively, more positive, less negative. But I want to talk a little bit more about the heart posture of the silent treatment, because there's the retaliation aspect of it, and the heart posture of, I want to inflict pain on you, so therefore I'm going to remove myself in a way that kind of hurts you. And there's the heart posture of, when we say heart posture, it's literally an energy within you. It's a mindset, and you're communicating, maybe not even through words, but through your mannerisms, through your eye contact, through everything of, I love you, I care about you, I want to hold space for you, but the space that I'm holding for you, the channel that's open between us, it's like there's a channel that's open between us. When I open it, you're sending knives through. So I'm closing the channel for now, which is essentially just removing myself. I'm boundarying it, but I will reopen it when you've gotten to a point where you're not trying to send knives through it anymore, And I am not judging you for your behavior, because I understand you're in pain and you're in a past pattern, but I want to help you to not hurt me anymore. And let's work through that together. I'm going to leave space for that, and we can open the channel again. You're basically saying, I'm removing myself, but I'm willing to open the connection again once it's safe.
Yeah, because you hurting me is not helping us.
Yeah. If I allow you to continue to hurt me, and this is one thing that like men have to get, because I'm sorry to go here, but the emotions of, that women go through, and the hormones and with their period and everything that they deal with, can start sending knives through, and not on purpose, but on accident. And I believe, tell me if you think I'm wrong, that every woman deep down craves a man who's going to look out for the relationship as a whole in that time period. Like, I'm not going to allow you, when your mind isn't right, to take down the ship. And I'm going to boundary you if I need to, and I'll come back in a safer time to talk about, maybe a triggering topic or something like that. And a lot of men get frustrated. They're like, well, why I can't bring it up at this time, or I have to tiptoe around the hormones. And it's like, yeah, you do sometimes, man. Sometimes you got to tiptoe around the hormones. Like, it's part of it.
Oh, and that's part of love.
Yeah.
Is loving the person through all the seasons, all the times of all the months, and taking them into consideration, caring about how they feel.
Yeah, it's not expecting your partner to never misstep. It's not like I hold you to a checklist of abusive behaviors, and if you do one, I'm there to retaliate in some way. It's like, hey, if one of these comes through and you misstep, I'm going to give you all the grace in the world, but I'm going to minimize, I'm going to use my shield in those times as much as I can in the right way. That's what it is. The silent treatment is using a shield as an offensive attack. And it's not supposed to be that. A boundary is supposed to be for your own protection only. And as soon as the person stops with the sword, you let the shield go and you're like, okay, we're back.
I think that simplifies it a little bit in the sense that I think you were onto something with the analogy, but just because someone put the knife down, I don't just put my boundary shield down right away. I kind of watch and go, like,
yeah, is it safe?
Yeah.
Is it safe?
I kind of I'm like, are we sure they're not going to pick that knife back up? They really love that knife, so let me take my time in lowering my shield with them. So
totally.
But yes, just
a
little clarification.
Yeah, and that's why all these different forms of abuse too aren't black and white. Like there's no black and white statement to whether you should leave a relationship or not. Should you, if there's enough minor abuse, a lot of little knives, you might have to leave. If there's a major abuse, you have to leave. If you want to give them an opportunity to come back because you've built a life together, there's classes, courses, coaches, places you can go to get help, and you can boundary yourself until that person does their healing work and give them a second chance. There's no black or white. It just is what you choose to do when the love gets lost and you go to these darker parts.
Right. And I think to touch on a little bit of the theme of the episode of us coming to terms with the fact that we've been abusive, I think it's important to note, if you find yourself in our boat, which I think a lot of people do, I think if you're listening to this podcast, most likely you do, that's when you remove yourself. Like, you don't always have to rely. I don't always rely on you to put the boundary and walk away. If I find it bubbling up in me that I am so mad, I want to yell at you, I want to say a name, or I want to, like, I don't know, mouth off, for lack of better terms. When I feel the need to do that, that's when I remove myself. That's really the practice. Is, yes, like, hold your partner accountable and put a boundary in place if they're abusive. But when you're abusive, you have to walk away. And the same rules apply. I will say to you, and I've said this many times, I am so mad right now. I want to yell at you. So I am leaving the room. And when I have calmed down, I will come back. And, like, sometimes I'll say it through, like, literally, like, gritting teeth. I'll be like, I am so mad right now. I'm leaving the room, but I still love you. And I'll come back when I feel better. And, like, that's sometimes how it comes out, but that's far better than me launching into abusive behavior. And then I leave, I go into a separate room, and I do my work, the tools that I have, that I can process what's going on internally in me, until I'm at a place where I'm like, okay, I know how I can approach this calmly, and from a place where I'm trying to actually connect and not tear your head off.
Yeah, we can turn on each other in our own minds, and when we do, we become abusive. We justify our own abuse because the other person has wronged us in some way. And the whole part of all of you and self-acceptance is also accepting those parts of you. It's accepting your anger. Anger is okay. I don't care if you're angry at me. I mean, I care. I would prefer you to not be angry at me. But if you get angry at me, it's fine. It's just, what are you doing with it? Are you now hurling daggers at me in some form of abuse? No, that's not okay. And it's like, what do we do with our anger? How do we learn to express anger in a healthy way?
Yeah, I'm really glad you brought that up, because I think, and maybe it's because of the, like, world that we're in, I think this, but emotional regulation is very much a trend right now. And where I see it so often is in pretty much anything you read about parenting nowadays is regulate your emotions so you can regulate your child's emotions. But none of us were taught how to regulate our emotions. So we're often told nowadays that we need to teach our kids how to do it, but us, we weren't taught this. And most likely, if you're in our demographic, like, you weren't taught how to regulate your emotions either. So it's really hard when your big feelings, as we say it to kids, right, come up and you don't know what to do with them. That's what happens when you are abusive towards your partner. You have these feelings in your body. You weren't taught how to regulate. You don't know how. And so they come out sideways. They come out and yelling and screaming and punching a wall and breaking things, or you don't know how to control your jealousy. And so you're controlling, or, all of these feelings that we don't know how to manage properly in our bodies are coming out sideways and then hurting those around us. So that's literally why we are such big advocates of working with someone to learn how to regulate your emotions, which honestly, if I could just like boil down, like, what even is that? It's just being with them, being allowing the storm to be in your body, but not, you're not caught up in the storm.
You don't
So
have to do anything about it. You don't have to solve it. It's
exactly.
understanding what's happening in your body. Like, let's say, you know, I came home tomorrow and you decided to leave me and all your stuff was gone and all that. Like, my body would be, it's pretty much like worst case scenario. I don't know why I went there, but like, just my body would be in so much pain and I would have so much turmoil inside in my stomach, my chest, all of these abandonment wounds I'd be feeling, and I'd just be a disaster. But I know now, if that happens to me, I need to get in bed, pull the covers over my head, and probably scream and cry or whatever I need to feel and just let it all through me. And and I trust that I'm gonna be okay on the other side of that. I'm not gonna die. Like, it would suck. It'd be really painful if you left me, but I'm not gonna die, you know? And I'd get out my meditation pillow the next day. I'd journal about it. I would allow this stuff to flow through me and I'd grieve it in a healthy way. It would impact my life tremendously, but I would understand that and understand that that's part of it. And when you don't know how to understand your own emotions and you don't know what's happening, you can feel all that and then you feel like you need to do something. And this is why, so many men end up committing suicide when they go through a divorce, or like so many people commit suicide, or they don't know what to do with the emotional storm inside their body. And there's nothing to do. And actually trying to do something, like trying to go out and drink it away, or trying to reach for something to solve it, medication in some way, is actually harmful in the long run, because you're never grieving it out. You're never processing it. You're never understanding it. So like, I would say exactly like you said, if you can't handle your own big feelings, it's going to be really hard to handle anyone else's. And when the girls are feeling big feelings, I will let them feel it. There's nothing to do.
Yeah,
You
and I
gotta
actually
feel
think,
it.
as silly as this sounds, that's often how we support each other too, without there being a
Mm-hmm.
conflict. Especially when it's that time of the month for me,
Mm-hmm.
and you just allow me to feel those feelings. You don't try to solve it. That's really helpful. Or when
I
we,
don't take it personal that you
yep,
feel that way. If if you wake up really angry at me out of the blue for something, if I don't take it personal, it's over in 10 minutes, and I just support you through it. If I bite and I defend myself or try to argue with you about it, I'm we're off to the races all of a sudden. I definitely, if you made it to this point in the episode, the last thing that I would want anyone to feel listening to this is shame for how they've shown up in a relationship. There is, I mean, of course that's a normal feeling, to feel that sense of shame. There is healthy shame when we feel like we've made missteps. I feel shame over the ways that I've shown up in relationship in my past, but you can accept it and you can move forward. Like, what I'm saying is, there's nothing wrong with you. Everybody's navigating this and no one's perfect. And the only way to get a little closer to the relationship you want is to start working on yourself. Start taking accountability for how you've had abusive patterns. Look up abuse. What is it in a relationship? Like, learn it. Don't be afraid of that word. I think that's where we started. I was afraid of that word, and that word scared me because I really probably didn't want to see it, I didn't want to admit that. But the more we admit it to each other, the more we kind of shy away from it and choose to not participate in that type of behavior.
yeah, I think I would just echo that I don't want you to feel shame if you have been abusive. We have been abusive. There's no judgment here. but there is a lot of power in admitting it. I think it's as cliche and corny as ever, but like that's the first step is what we all, everyone says, like 12-step programs, right? Like admitting it. And from there, you can actually start catching yourself doing it. And the bottom line is when you admit it and you start working on it, what you're really doing is just loving better. You're doing the most loving thing you could do for those around you, which is showing up, treating them well. And so this episode is not to beat anyone up. It's really coming from a place of, let's get you loving the people in your life the way that you want to love them. Because I do know that the times that I haven't shown up well, I feel like crap afterwards. Like I have felt shame for it. Like, man, where did that come from? What is the dark, depths of my soul where that would come out of? It doesn't feel good, but we're all wounded. We can all heal and we can all change our behavior. 100%. That's what this podcast is all about. We're a testament to that. So just saying it all with love, that you are capable of having a beautiful, healthy relationship with yourself, with others. It's all possible.
For sure.
Love you.
Love you.
Bye.
Bye.